I saw a cartoon this week. I'm not sure if you call them political cartoons when they're passed around the church. Maybe they're liturgical cartoons. I'm not sure the official word for it. But it's a drawing, an outline drawing of Jesus speaking to some of his challengers, his adversaries, the crowd. And Jesus says to them, the difference between you and me is you use the scriptures to define what love means. And I use love to define what the scriptures mean. You use the scriptures to define what love means, and I use love to define what the scriptures mean. It's a critique that hits a lot of us square in the face. On issues of love, the church has been, for the most part, full of thou shalt not. When it comes to issues of love, we have been inclined to decline to have a voice. We've let those who would judge, those who would say, thou shalt not, be the ones to speak authoritatively on the issues. Thou shalt not, critique and condemnation, or we've just been plain silent. For our silence, for our complacency, on behalf of the church over the centuries, to all who've been harmed, on behalf of the church, I offer these words. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. We have let preachers pick and choose and allow them to call people abominations. And we have failed to silence them with the gospel of love. We have let translators twist words, giving them new meaning that are ugly and hateful, and failed to condemn them with common sense, scholarship, or love. We have let homophobic society turn bad theology into even worse political fundraising, and we have failed to lift up love and thus so allow them to do their work in the name of God. And I am sorry. We have let the conversation about love end with judgment and condemnation. We have failed to lift up love such as we see with David and with Jonathan, a covenantal love. I don't know if you picked up on those scriptures as we went through the nature of their relationship. There are promises made. There is vulnerability shared. There is equal power between the partners in this relationship. There is an inclusion of the family baggage. There is a look to the future, a hope that this is not just a momentary thing, but an investment in each other. And there is passion and there is praise of one another. Real biblical family values, church. Real biblical family values. Covenantal love outlined for us in the relationship between David and Jonathan. I tell you, I am proud to say that I am pastor of an open and affirming church, but I'm always surprised by the responses I get. And the more often I have the pleasure of saying it, the more I wrestle with the response I get. Sometimes it's met with surprise. What does that mean? Sometimes it's met with confusion. How do you do that? Sometimes it's met with relief. Oh, that's so refreshing. Or, that's so unique. For a while, I found it flattering. For a while, I found it progress. But the more I read the story of David and Jonathan, the more angry I get, the more frustrated I get. That's refreshing? That's unique? No, it's not. It's in the Bible. And it's in the Old Testament. You know those old laws we dismiss because they're out of touch with today? They were open and affirming. Somehow we got lost along the way. Our late arrival that love is love, our recent discovery that love includes all people, doesn't make it unique, new, or improved.
Ooh.
It's like saying that Columbus discovered something when he came to America, or that my parents wanting to sync their cell phones is a new feature. No, it's been there. They just discovered it. Love has been love since the beginning. God created male and female. God created love and it was good. We're just rediscovering it, church. In reality, it's sad. It's sad that we've let Scripture be used for hate and division. It's sad that we've let words of love, what should be words of love, justify people's dark obsessions and fearful, irrational responses. Scripture at its core is about love, both Old and New Testament. The love of God, self, and neighbor. That Trinity, that original Trinity of love is lifted up in the Shema of Deuteronomy. It is lifted up in the words and teachings of Jesus and echoed throughout the centuries of the church. But somehow it gets overshadowed, shouted out by our insecurities, by our fears, by what society tells us our faith should believe. Scripture at its core is about love, and the story of David and Jonathan comes to us as a gift this morning to reclaim what love can look like. Now, the story of David and Jonathan is complicated, like most relationships. If you personally are in a relationship that is not complicated, well, good for you. Relationships are complicated for the most part, except for yours. David is a farmer's kid who's told by the local prophet, probably the crazy man out of the hills in the minds of the family, that one day he's going to grow up and be a king. Jonathan is born the firstborn of the first king of Israel. Society's told him he will be king. They should be rivals, but they're not. They're in love. They're in love. We don't know exactly how they met or when they met. We don't know how this romance fell into being. But the scriptures we've heard today give us a picture of a beautiful relationship. We know there's more to come to the story. We know that after Jonathan's death, and even in the midst of, David has eyes on women as well. Many of them political marriages. David knew how to solidify his power. Many of them of convenience, some of them forced. Also the idea that David may have been the first pansexual. He liked that, and that, and that, and that. And I'll take the one on the rooftop too, please. But at this point, in this point of his life, he has this core relationship with Jonathan. So much so that when Jonathan dies, David says in his song, I loved you more than any woman I ever met. My love for you was more than for my love of women. David is speaking his truth. After it's all said and done, David is coming out to anyone who hears the song. This is where my love has been, and it's gone. You can hear the passion in his voice. You can hear the music of his soul. They should be rivals, but they were in love. Now, old picture Bibles will depict the two as best friends. Old commentaries will explain how a kiss is not overtly sexual. Old biases have trapped these two in the friend zone for 3,000 years, church, and it's time to let them loose. It is time to let them loose. Their relationship is more than a kiss, more than two guys out on a hunt. They are two people who have found an expression of covenantal relationship. A relationship we can all learn from. Relationship for lovers, for friends, even for church. Things we can learn from. For too long, Christians have been lecturing each other about love and its limits. Love and its limits. Shaking Bibles in each other's faces as if the Bible were God. Making them feel unwanted and welcome in the church. Making them scurry, run from the church in search of love. Running from the church in search of love. We are an open, affirming church. And it's nice. The rainbow flag outside is nice. But nothing speaks louder of love than the way we treat each other, than the relationships we build, the people we dare to let in. We are a Bible-believing church. Let's dispel that one. We're people who've read it, all of it, including 1 Samuel 18, 19, 20, and 2 Samuel. We read David and Jonathan. We read, love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, and mind. Love your neighbor and yourself. We've read read the whole story. We read the stories of Jesus, and we heard no condemnation. We heard Jesus loving those that others critiqued, and we follow in his footsteps. We have studied the Bible. We've read the Greek. We've looked at the Hebrew. We've learned there's no Hebrew word for homosexual, so you know where you can take that word and leave it. We've read the Bible. We have studied it, and we're not just taking Reverend Repression's word for it. We own what we believe. It is our truth. These stories have shaped us into the people in church we are today. They have critiqued us. They have challenged us. They have forged us into a church seeking justice. These stories are the very ones that have called us to be a missional church, reaching out to those in need. Called us to be a church that makes our building and our space a sanctuary for those who feel alone and scared. A church that includes women at every level of leadership, ordaining them since the blessed 1800s, brothers and sisters. Yes. We are a church called to confront racism. We paid in the United Church of Christ the legal fees for the Amistad. We're not new to this fight. We have been shaped by these biblical stories for years, and today we stand with our brothers and sisters. LGBTQ and S for straight, because all of us have a role in this, and we all have a voice and a truth to share in this fight. It is vital. It is vital that we know our scripture and we know our stories. That we know the whole story. The clobber passages translated and taken out of context. And the story of David and Jonathan as well. It's vital we share our story, the whole story of God's unconditional love, of wholeness for all people, so that someone asks what we believe, we don't start with a don't or can't. We start with, we believe in the unconditional love of God that we have known through the life of Jesus Christ. Yes. We believe in the unconditional love of God that was there in the beginning and will be forever and ever. Amen. We believe in the love for neighbor, self, and a balance of that love with the spiritual self that God put within us, the very breath of creation. We believe. We believe. And we can also, when someone whips out their Bible and waggles it at us, we can tell them what it really says, should they dare to crack it open. The Bible is dangerous. It is dangerous. In the right hands, it can be life-giving. It can be a vessel of love and hope to all people. In the wrong hands, it can deal death and pain and destruction. Unfortunately, over the years, church, we have been the wrong hands. We have been the wrong hands. But don't get too discouraged. Things are changing. Don't get discouraged. Things are changing. 3 years ago, this church voted to be open and affirming. And one of the things that was not in Teresa's version of the story that I discovered that was mind-blowing to me, they voted to be open and affirming unanimously with absolutely zero openly gay members. Think about that. It wasn't because we love our nephew or our friend or our aunt or our mother. They made it as a statement of faith. As a statement of faith. Now today, we have reaffirmed that covenant with more diversity in this room than we could ever have imagined. Things are changing, church. Things are changing. We have reaffirmed a covenant in this space, not just to a moment, not just for a day, but we made a long-term commitment like David and Jonathan. We have affirmed our promise to be a safe sanctuary for all God's people, following the lead of David and Jonathan, who made room for each other's demons, each other's baggage, each other's challenges. We have affirmed today our passion and our praise for the love of God. Things are changing, church, and we have to continue to be part of the change. Too many still lack power and lack a voice. Too many still feel unsafe. Too many still don't know if they would be welcome in this space today. I can't tell you how many emails, how many phone calls I got saying, are you sure I would really be welcome? Are you sure it's not a trick? Are you sure? I saw the article in the paper about the other church inviting people to come in so they could fix them, change them. Are you sure I'm welcome? And until everybody knows they are loved for who they are, church, we've still got work to do. Things are changing, but not into something new. Things are changing, but not into something new. We are rediscovering the love seen in David and Jonathan. We are rediscovering the love that led Jesus to kneel and serve those who loved him, who would betray him, who would disappoint him, and those who would share his love to the next generation. We rediscover the love of God that makes room for us all. May the people of God rediscover their beauty. May the people of God rediscover their full potential, and in doing so, reclaim the power of covenantal relationships, partnerships with each other. None of us can do this alone. None of us can complete the change our society needs alone. May the people of God rediscover the love of God, shared between lovers, within family, with friends, with neighbors, with strangers in community, and yes, the unconditional love of God seen in the church. May we all know the love of God. And for those who don't, may each of us be a safe sanctuary. May each of us go from this place sharing that love with others, welcoming them into our lives, making sure our brothers and sisters, our mothers, our fathers, our aunts, our cousins know that their family will love them and accept them. That the new person who walks into church, timid, challenged, dressing a new way, reclaiming the love they think is lost or not available to them, that they know by our welcome that they are a beautiful child of God. And may we greet them and say, I'm sorry. Welcome home.
Yes.
Amen.
Amen.